The Babylonian origins of Lent, Mardi Gras, Ash Wednesday, and Easter. Many modern religious and cultural traditions, including Mardi Gras, Lent, Ash Wednesday, and Easter, can be traced back to ancient Babylonian mystery religions, centered around three figures: Nimrod, his wife Semiramis, and their son Tammuz. These pagan traditions were absorbed and rebranded over time, especially as Christianity spread through the Roman Empire and blended with local customs. Nimrod, a powerful and rebellious king, was said to have led humanity into idolatry after the flood. He was killed, according to legend, by Shem, Noah's righteous son, for his wickedness. After his death, Semiramis, his wife, claimed that Nimrod had become the sun god, and she later gave birth to Tammuz, supposedly through a miraculous conception via a sunbeam. She declared that Tammuz was the reincarnated Nimrod, and the people began to worship this mother-son pair as divine. Semiramis took on names such as Ishtar, Astarte, and Easter, and was worshipped as a goddess of fertility, lust, war, and new life. Her influence spread into many cultures, shaping myths and symbols still used today. According to some ancient legends and later interpretations, Semiramis was a powerful Babylonian queen who declared herself a goddess after her husband, Nimrod, died. In mythic tradition, she claimed to have ascended to the heavens and returned to earth in a giant egg, landing in the Euphrates River. From this mystical event, she was reborn as Ishtar, a goddess of fertility, love, and war, sometimes associated with the sun. As part of this rebirth myth, it is said that the egg miraculously hatched a sacred creature, often retold in folklore as a hare or rabbit. This rabbit, symbolizing fertility and life, was believed to lay eggs, a further symbol of new beginnings and rebirth. Some versions of the myth even claim the rabbit gave birth to a divine child or creature named Tammuz, or Zazim in some stylized retellings, linking the cycle of life, death, and rebirth to seasonal renewal. Over time, these rich symbols, the egg, the rabbit, and the goddess, blended into spring rituals and eventually into the Easter traditions we know today, where the egg-laying bunny delivers colorful eggs to mark the return of life after winter. Tammuz was killed, some say by a wild boar, at the age of 40. His death sparked a 40-day mourning period among his followers. People fasted, wept, and covered themselves in ashes, a sign of sorrow and spiritual dedication. This directly parallels Lent, the 40-day Christian fasting period, and Ash Wednesday, which begins it. The ash cross placed on the forehead is not just symbolic of repentance. Many believe it echoes the ancient Tau, the mark of Tammuz, used by his followers. Even the cross symbol predates Christ in this context and was used in Babylonian and Egyptian symbolism tied to life, death, and rebirth. In ancient Mesopotamian and later Semitic traditions, Tammuz, sometimes stylized as Tazum, was considered a god of vegetation and renewal, closely tied to the cycles of death and rebirth in nature. According to myth, after his tragic death, often linked to a wild boar or the underworld, his mother, Semiramis, later deified as Ishtar, mourned deeply. This mourning became ritualized in a seasonal ceremony known as the Weeping for Tammuz. During these rites, statues of Tammuz were placed in temples or sacred groves, often with hollow eyes or channels carved into the face. These hollows were filled with oil lamps or candles. When lit, the flickering light and melting wax would create the illusion that the idol was shedding tears. Smoke from incense and flickering shadows added to the haunting spectacle, making it seem as if the statue itself mourned the young god's death. This is what the prophet Ezekiel saw in his vision recorded in Ezekiel 8 verse 14. He was brought to the north gate of the Lord's temple, where he saw women weeping for Tammuz. To Ezekiel, this was a sign of deep idolatry, Israel embracing foreign pagan rites and turning from the worship of Yahweh. The emotional, theatrical ritual was a powerful symbol of apostasy, blending myth, ritual, and visual illusion to stir the hearts of worshippers. Over time, these mourning rituals, combined with myths of resurrection and fertility, were absorbed into various seasonal celebrations, transforming over centuries into springtime festivals that still carry the echoes of life, death, and rebirth. Before the 40-day fast, ancient festivals were held to indulge in food, drink, and sexual pleasure. This celebration survives in the modern Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, where people feast and party before Lent. Sweet treats like pancakes, pastries, and king cakes are eaten in excess as a symbol of indulgence, just as ancient pagans would gorge before entering into sacred fasting periods. Masks and costumes were worn to hide one's identity, allowing people to engage in wild behavior, especially sexual rituals, without fear of being recognized. In Babylon, fertility festivals included orgies and temple prostitution, believed to honor the gods of fertility and ensure a good harvest. These traditions later spread through the Roman Empire as part of Saturnalia and Bacchanalia, and were eventually absorbed into Christian Europe, hidden beneath religious imagery and language. As today, known as the 40 Days of Lent and as the people get ready for the pagan festival of Easter. Semiramis was said to have descended from heaven in a giant egg, which landed in the Euphrates. She emerged as a goddess of spring and rebirth, turning a bird into a rabbit that laid colored eggs. These symbols became associated with fertility and new life, not Christ's resurrection. Easter ham is linked to the myth that a wild boar killed Tammuz, and eating pork was a symbolic act of defeating the creature that took his life. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, the early Catholic Church, Catholic meaning universal, sought to unify diverse peoples under one faith. Rather than eliminate local traditions, the Church often absorbed and reinterpreted them to create a more seamless transition for converts. One example is Easter. Across many cultures, spring festivals were already celebrated with themes of fertility, rebirth, and renewal, often honoring deities like Ishtar or Tammuz. These festivals included powerful symbols such as eggs and rabbits, which represented new life. To bridge the gap, the Church placed the celebration of Christ's resurrection, Passover. With the change from Passover to Easter, one biblical and the other pagan. While the event of Jesus rising from the dead was central to Christian faith, aligning it with familiar seasonal themes helped people embrace it more easily. Even the word Easter likely comes from Eostre, a spring goddess in Anglo-Saxon tradition. Over time, elements like egg decorating and the Easter bunny were folded into the celebration, now given Christian symbolism, the egg as the empty tomb, and new life as a symbol of resurrection. Through this process, the Catholic, universal, Church united spiritual truth with cultural tradition, creating a global faith that could adapt to local customs while still proclaiming its core message, the triumph of life over death through Christ. With the twist of a pagan feast day, Easter that was never written in the Bible to keep or uphold, none of the 12 apostles kept Easter. Jesus never said to keep Easter but commanded us to keep the Passover. Babylon's legacy in modern traditions. Nimrod's death and Semiramis's power grab birthed a system of spiritual deception, establishing a false trinity of Father, Son God, Mother, Queen of Heaven, and Son, Tammuz. Semiramis, Ishtar/Easter, claimed divinity and spread fertility worship, tied to cycles of sex, death, and rebirth. Tammuz's death sparked a 40-day mourning, Lent, that involved ashes, fasting, and lamentation. Ash Wednesday marks followers with a cross, originally the Tau of Tammuz. Mardi Gras continues ancient rites of excess, masked lust, and ritual indulgence, mirroring the fertility festivals of old. Sweet treats, pork, eggs, and rabbits were all tied to pagan worship, absorbed into Easter but rooted in symbols of Semiramis/Ishtar. These traditions were rebranded as Christian over centuries but still carry the core elements of Babylonian paganism, hidden in plain sight. Will you keep the things in the Bible or the traditions of man that are not in the Bible?